Hello, this is Sam Gerrans from Truth in the News. Today is Saturday, the 16th of April, 2022, and we're just going to jump straight in and play Propaganda Bingo. If you don't know Propaganda Bingo, you have to, you can pick it up as we go along. It's not very difficult. But if you want to know the rules, I have a video called Propaganda Bingo. Watch that and you'll know all about it. But anyway, for those who already know the rules, or even those who don't, it doesn't really matter. We can just jump straight in. Now, I haven't read this article. I just opened one at random. And we'll just have a quick look at that one. Yes, this is, what is it? The so-called The Guardian. Yes, The Guardian, so-called Guardian. But it doesn't matter. I'm not picking on The Guardian and The Independent in particular. I do tend to sort of focus on those, mainly because I'm from the UK, mainly because it's what I call libtard media, but it doesn't really matter. You've got the kind of the fake right, you've got the fake left, doesn't matter. It's all the same nonsense. Wall Street Journal, doesn't matter, whatever it is, Washington Post, Daily Mail, The Sun, it's all the same kind of tosh, but with different entry levels. This is for people who think they're intelligent, so I kind of hit on this one. Anyway, let's have a look at it and see how we're doing today. So this is Luke Harding. Oh, good, I didn't even know that. Luke Harding. In Kyiv, as they call it now, instead of Kiev, and Julian Borgia in Washington, and agencies. I don't know what agencies we're talking about here. I'll leave that to you to decide. Anyway, this is called Up to 3,000 Ukraine troops killed since Russia invaded, said Zelensky. They keep spelling Zelensky in all these different weird ways. I've noticed the Ukrainians, and it's a bit what happens when you go full libtard. You have to start spelling things differently. You become very worried about how you're addressed. Your identity becomes the only thing that's really interesting about you, rather than what you think you are, rather than what you actually do. So Ukrainian names are all changed as battle rages in Mariupol. Right, I just kind of, okay, this is missing context. Where's missing context? Where's my list? There we are. Maria, where are you? Maria Gonzalez. Missing context. This is Maria. Maria's just discovered that she's managed to crack Juan's telephone, her boyfriend, and discovered what's really been going on all the time, that he's been going out with her. There's a whole thing that she didn't know about. So where did that come up? Yes, as battle rages in Mariupol. Mariupol's been lost to Russia. Okay, that's just the actual context. That's what's really going on. It's not a battle raging. It's a mopping up operation. The Russians have managed to take Mariupol, apart from Azovstal factory. Factory is a bit of a misleading word as well. But anyway, that's the actual context. Anyway, let's carry on with this. I haven't read this. I literally haven't read it. I just literally 5 seconds ago, before I started this, opened it, and we're reading it for the first time together. But I know pretty much what it's going to be, because it's all like this. Ukraine president claims up to 20,000 Russians have died. So that's an interesting word, isn't it? Have died. Even Zelensky isn't claiming that they've contracted some sort of disease. You mean killed, been killed in action, but died. Is it? Whoops. Reprisals from Moscow expected in wake of sinking of flagship cruiser the Moskva. Okay, this is a little bit of what I would call, selling you unrelated items. Now, this is Karen. Karen's she's getting one of those calls. You know those calls you get?
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, one of those calls which is completely unrelated to the rest of your life, where they're trying to sell you something which doesn't connect actually with the rest of what's going on. But anyway, let's carry on with this. So, yes. Well, the claim, he can claim what he likes. The fact is, I that's not correct. But anyway, I'm not here to really so much to kind of argue so-called facts, but really just to see what they're doing. These are unconnected events. The Moskva, sure, it has sunk. I think the Russians probably sunk it themselves because they realized it wasn't worth continuing with. It is an embarrassment to the Russian side, no question about it. The Duran's analysis of this, Alexander, I'm afraid I don't know his surname. I think he's probably correct that there was some event that happened, probably an explosion attached to to the armaments, and it wasn't worth continuing. They're already building or nearly rebuilt a replacement anyway. So rather than use up valuable space in the dock, they decided just to dump it. I think that's probably correct. I certainly don't think that Ukraine sunk that ship, and certainly the Pentagon would have tracked that if it had happened and would have been very happy to supply the evidence, but that's not there. So these are unconnected events. That's what the point I'm trying to say. There's a claim on the one hand that 20,000 Russian soldiers have died, and then reprisals from Moscow expected in the wake of sinking of flagship cruiser the Moskva. There are reprisals expected from Russia, but it's nothing to do with the so-called sinking of the ship of the flagship cruiser Moskva. It's to do with the fact that Ukraine has been carrying out pinprick attacks actually into Russian territory, attacking various items there. That's where the reprisals would actually come from. So we haven't even got to the article yet, and it's we're already sort of foundering in Tosh. But anyway, let's continue. Volodymyr, instead of Vladimir, Volodymyr Zelensky said up to 3,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed. At least they didn't die. These were killed. The Russians died, but they've been killed. Since Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine on 24th of February, with no total yet available for civilian casualties. Well, actually, Zelensky should know quite a lot about civilian casualties, especially on his own side, as we may get to. As fighting intensified in the battle for the southern city of Mariupol. Battle intensified. The Russians have taken Mariupol. If you don't understand any of the background to this, the Ukrainians dug into residential areas, making them legitimate targets. I honestly thought the Russians would do what their doctrine says, and if you don't know what that is, look up Scott Ritter in YouTube and search by results, search by upload date, and he'll tell you all about that. But they didn't. What they did was they used what's called the Syrian doctrine, which is taking material hits themselves, losses themselves, in order to go street by street by street, picking these people out, these people using terrorist tactics, there's no question about it, in order to save civilians and to reduce the amount of civilian casualties. That's what's actually happened. Now, the Russians have taken the whole of Mariupol, except for one part. They've one part of the Azovstal factory. It's been a complete rout. It's the actual context. The actual context. Here you are, missing context. That's Maria Gonzalez. So that's the actual context. It's a mopping up operation. Now, the Ukrainians are actually terrified, and their handlers, the CIA, NATO handlers, are terrified. There seems to be somebody that they really important that they're trying to get out of Azovstal. One can surmise, one can conjecture that it's quite likely to be a NATO ranking officer commanding these Nazis. Not going to look good, is it? Anyway, let's get back to this. See where we are with this one. Ukraine's president said that the military situation in the south and east was, quote, still very difficult. Yeah, I'll say. Oh, yeah, actually, before we get to that, I mean, just the numbers of Ukrainian dead in Mariupol are multiples of 3,000. That's just one city. Okay, you are being lied to on a regular basis. It's just the fact. Okay, you can deny it, you can not deny it. I really couldn't care less. But this is just where you are. And if you haven't watched my video on how to play propaganda bingo, then do watch it, because it will give you a backstory to really what I'm doing here. Okay, that one. So, Ukraine's president said the military situation in the south and east was, quote, still very difficult. Yes, you're about to get slaughtered if you don't surrender en masse. While praising the work of his armed forces, quote, the successes of our military on the battlefield are really significant, historically significant, but they are still not enough to clean our lands of the occupiers. I'll just translate that into Englishese for those people who still care about actual facts. The Russians certainly have taken tactical hits. There's no question about that. They're fighting a standing army of 250, well, there aren't that many left, but originally of 250,000 men, bearing arms, trained and equipped to NATO standards. Russia isn't just defeating Ukraine; it's defeating NATO in Ukraine. To put that into perspective, I mean, I looked up the the amount of the British Army, and according to Wikipedia, which, as we know, never lies on any question, the British Army consists of 80,000 such men. But according to Alexander of the Duran, which you're welcome to check him, I mean, he says it's actually 20,000 men under arms. Ukraine had 350,000. Russia went in with around, I think it's around 200,000. So certainly the Russians have taken hits. Certainly the Russians have had to change their strategy there, because they've made some mistakes too. But strategically, overall, there's no question the Russians have won and are winning. And this isn't, I'm not trying to talk it up. I can care less, whether you believe this or not. It's just the fact. But what I am much more interested in is the propaganda, and also how they're going to deal, tell the people in the West eventually that, the Russians have won. How are they going to kind of draw that out and pull that rabbit out of the hat? They're going to have some real problems. But currently, everyone, well, not everyone, but the vast majority of people in the West are being expected to go into austerity, actually poverty, in order to support Nazism, whilst still arguing over personal pronouns. It's so insane, you couldn't make it up. But anyway, let's just continue with this propaganda. Ukraine's blah, blah, the success is blah, blah, but they are still not enough to clear our land of the occupiers. No, you're having your head handed to you on a plate is what's happening. He said in a late-night video address, calling again for allies to send heavier weapons and for an international embargo on Russian oil. So yeah, if you thought that COVID wasn't enough, now you can totally annihilate your economy with this. There's just, as Alan Watt used to say, the late and very great Alan Watt, and that's Watt with no S on the end, from cutting through thematrix.com. We're living through a business plan. So this is the business plan, except the business is that you're not going to have a business. Anyway, let's carry on. Zelensky, speaking to CNN's Jake Tapper, assessed, not asserted, but assessed, that about 10,000 of his soldiers had been injured in the war so far, and that up to 20,000 Russian soldiers had died. Again, Russian soldiers die, but Ukrainian soldiers are killed. This is nonsense, and you have to consider the source. But anyway, let's just leave the numbers for now. And that up to 20,000 Russian soldiers had died. Moscow said last month that 1,351 Russian soldiers had been killed and 3,825 wounded. I'm certain that those numbers are either completely correct or extremely close to correct. And there are reasons why I say that. It's nothing to do with allegiance to Russia. It's just I happen to speak Russian, and I listen to the statements coming out of the Ministry of Defense and from people like Lavrov and people like Masha Zakharova and so on. And I look at her and I think, this is so dull that it can't not be correct. It's an accounting procedure, and also you have to understand what the Russians are doing. They're not just fighting this war now. They're preparing for a tribunal. They're preparing for taking these criminals to court. They're playing the long game. They're putting together evidence including things like biological weapons manufacturing and chemical weapons manufacturing by the United States in 30 laboratories in Ukraine. They're also in all the other former Soviet states apart from Russia. Things like this, you see. So Russians, they understand what they're doing. They're on an accounting procedure, and also they understand that in order to maintain credibility, you have to stick to the facts. And what Russians tend to do when they don't want, when something's not convenient to them, is they just ignore it. They just elide it. That's typically what happens. They don't do what the West does, which is tell overt lies. They just kind of elide it, just ignore that and carry on, like a quick road bump, go over it and just don't say anything about it. That's what the Russians tend to do. They don't tell open lies like the West is used to. Anyway, let's just carry on. Zelensky, speaking to blah blah, said that there is no way yet to independently verify either claim. So what they're doing here, this is interesting. This is Zoe. Here's Zoe. This is obfuscation and simulation. Now, Zoe,
add me as a friend.
if you don't know who Zoe is, if you're 17 and male, you definitely know who Zoe is. She's pretending to do something that she isn't really doing. What she's really doing is she's pretending like she might be your girlfriend at some point, but the fact is she never will be. I'm telling you now, Zoe's never ever going to be your girlfriend. That's just the truth. And what these guys are doing is they're pretending to be journalists, but they're not journalists. They are propagandists working for the state. That's what they're doing. So anyway, let's go back to it and carry on with this piece of tosh. There is no way yet to independently verify either claim. There is no way yet to independently split infinitives. But anyway, let's carry on. What they're doing, my point is, they're pretending to be journalists. It's the either or. You know, we've considered this side, now here's the other side, and now here's the conclusion. But what they're really doing is implying that the Russians are lying. I've told you why I don't think that's the case, and you have to make up your own mind. Ukrainian forces remain braced for Russian reprisals after the sinking of flagship cruiser the Moskva, the pride of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. I'll stop there. The Moskva means Moscow. I'm sure you know that, but it wasn't exactly the pride of the Black Sea Fleet. It was the flagship because it was the biggest ship, but it was very old, and the Russians are already in the process of producing a replacement. I mean, this is already underway. What they're doing here is, number one, it's Karen. This is unrelated items. They're trying to attach things that don't go together, okay? And this is one of the main ways propaganda works. So what they're trying to do is attach the sinking of the Moskva, and the Moskva, has been sunk, there's no question, and what's going to happen next. But these things are not related. The Russians aren't interested in the sinking of the Moskva, but Moskva had played no part in what's going on. The Moskva sank, I think, for reasons which are completely unrelated to this, what is going on. And the reprisals which are coming are nothing to do with that whatsoever. Okay, so I'm just unpacking this because Mr. Harding and his accomplices, they are practiced in this, and I'm just unpacking it for you. I mean, I'm not here to argue facts with you if you don't have them. Okay, I'm just showing you this is how it works. I know because I read in the Soviet Union we had the same thing. It's just the same, okay? I'm not saying that just Western media does this, but I do think that Western media now is what it's become is a parody of itself. It's always been doing this. It's been doing this to you all the way through COVID. It was doing it to you all the way through Iraq wars. It's always been doing it to you. So it's a method of control. It's how how you keep the plebs in the box of the regime, any regime, not just Western regimes. But I think the reason why I'm kind of picking this up now is because, there are various reasons, but one of them is all of my life I've had the sort of these liberals assuming their moral superiority because they are so embracing of everything, and I'm an ist and I to an ob. That's all, ist, eit, ob. But now they're Nazis. Now they're supporting a Nazi regime. That's what this is in support of. Because I always thought, well, actually these people, they don't appear to have any moral backbone or kind of fixed compass. They're porous. They'll just accept whatever you pour into them. They have no point of objective reference. And now it's been proven because their gush kind of compass has been directed towards supporting Zelensky's Nazi, and it is a Nazi regime. So I always used to think, well, in the Third Reich, they would have been the Nazis because they have no real functioning independent thought now. They would have not had it then. They would have been the ones lining the streets shouting Sieg Heil. I would have been the one with folded arms going, I'm not quite sure I go along with this. And now I've had it proven to me. It's almost, for me, it's almost like, I don't know, I feel quite vindicated. So that's part of why I'm doing this, but there are other reasons too. Anyway, let's carry on with with what we're doing here. Let's carry on. Let Luke, finally cover himself in glory. Where are we? The pride of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, which US defense officials confirmed had sunk after a Ukrainian missile strike. I checked that out. I don't think that's correct. And if it was US defense officials, find out who precisely, because this isn't borne out by the facts. But they know you're too dumb to work this out, so they don't care. You can just chuck this one in there. Anyway, let's carry on. The fact is that this has no real connection with what's going on, and the Moskva wasn't involved in this war at all. So let's just get on with the rest of it. The government in Kyiv, which if you're a libtard, you call it now, said it had destroyed the giant missile cruiser during a combat operation in the Black Sea on Wednesday. Yeah, and like almost everything that Kyiv says, it's debunked within 24 to 48 hours, according at least to retired Colonel Doug McGregor. Look him up on YouTube. I'm not going to point you to particular videos. You've got eyeballs and index fingers. Do it yourself. Just look up Colonel Doug McGregor and then sort the results by upload date and listen to what he's got to say. Anyway, let's carry on. So this falls under what? This falls under the this falls under number 7. It's a lie or demonization. I'll give you the audio for lie. I'm not going to give you the audio every time, but here you are. Here's the backstory to lies.
They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
There you are. That's Tiffany. Tiffany lying to giving evidence in America after the invasion of Kuwait by the Iraqi forces, telling them all about the babies, which was a total lie. So this I think it's a total lie as well. So let's just carry on with that. Yes, Russia said that since the sinking, it had struck what it described as a factory on the outskirts of the capital, Kiev. Right, okay, let's just get this. This is Karen. Unrelated items. I'm telling you, these things are unrelated, but Luke's job is to connect these unrelated items in your mind, all right? So Russia said that since the sinking, these are unrelated items. Russia had the outskirts of the capital Kyiv that made and repaired anti-ship missiles. The US believes, the US doesn't believe anything. The US consists of around 300 million people. They believe all kinds of different things. The US believes 2 Ukrainian missiles hit the Moskva, causing Russian casualties, a senior official said. This is this is Mildred. Mildred is an opinion leader. We don't know who this senior official is. Maybe they'll tell us later. But anyway.
Just tell me exactly what to do and how to do it.
Yeah, tell me exactly what to do and how to do it. And that's an opinion leader. So anyway, a senior official said, countering Moscow's claim that the missile cruiser sank because of an onboard explosion and more than 500 sailors were evacuated. The fate of the vast majority of the crew remains unclear. This is, where are we? 5. Gaslighting. Yeah, this is kind of an implied conclusion. Anyway, let's carry on. Zelensky has appealed to Joe Biden for the United States to designate Russia a, quote, state sponsor of terrorism, joining North Korea, Cuba, Iran, and Syria, the Washington Post reported, citing people familiar with their conversation. Who, what, where, when? Those are the questions and why that journalists are supposed to answer. I don't see any of those being answered here. A Whitehall spokesman responded by saying, "We will continue to consider all options to increase the pressure on Putin." So this is more Mildred. Thank you, Mildred. Yes, more of that. I would say a little bit more of Ingrid. I hope you're playing along and you can checking these off. And I mean, I'm sure you can come up with others. Who cares? Let's carry on. Russia this week reportedly sent a formal warning to the US not to send more arms to Ukraine or risk facing, quote, unpredictable consequences. Well, that's unreasonable, isn't it? Can you imagine if America was engaged in a war anywhere else and Russia started, chipping in, saying, oh, you know what, we're going to arm the people you're fighting. Can't you see that? I mean, just objectively, if you just stand back and consider what's going on and just change it around, think like this is, let's imagine this was America in Iraq and Russia was arming the Iraqis and sending tons of stuff to them in order to fight America. What do you think the response would be? But no, the double standards as regards Russia. Russia is just supposed to kind of bend over and take anything that the West aims at it and just be happy with that. And if it's not, then it's just evil. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Anyways, carry on. The diplomatic note or démarche, what they're showing, what Luke's attempting to show you here is he's sort of like multinational. He speaks the languages and so on. Actually, he does speak. He speaks Russian, I believe. But he's trying. These journalists. They, as I say quite regularly, that a lot of them can write, and they're frustrated. And the more intelligent ones know that they're really essentially arms of the deep state. They're just, they are prostitutes. They do know this, but they didn't begin that way. I don't think they started out thinking, you know what, I really want to be a spineless, supine tool of the regime. No, I think mainly they started off thinking they were going to be novelists or screenplay writers or something like that. And then a bit like dentists are failed doctors and journalists are failed writers. But these are not even failed writers, they're failed journalists. So what they're doing is they're sort of trying to invest their pathetic attempts to salvage their own consciences with some sort of significance. That's why they use these sorts of words anyway. Warns that US and NATO deliveries of the, quote, most sensitive, end quote, weapon systems to Ukraine were, quote, adding fuel, end quote, to the conflict. And this use of quotes here, if you haven't picked it up, is in some way to distance and in some way to impugn the validity of what's being said here. I mean, quite clearly, it is adding fuel to the fire. Quite clearly, it is resulting in more people getting killed. But what's not being considered at any point is that whether or not Russia has any valid claims in its actions. That is elided from. It is assumed by means of Ingrid, this gaslighting, these assumed conclusions. It's assumed. We start, before we go in, Russia's wrong. We're just here to discuss why you're wrong and reach conclusions on that basis. That's it. This is how propaganda works. I'm not really just saying this about how they treat Russia. I'm saying this is how they treat everything. And I think I have to believe that the more intelligent journalists here understand this, at least intuit it. And obviously the editors will play a very, very important role in shaping how this is fed to you. This weaponized information is fed to you. It has a purpose, which is to implant triggers in your nervous system. And then those triggers are fired when keywords are used. It circumnavigates what's left of your reason, turning you into basically a robot of sorts. That's how it works. It's very clever. If you read about NLP, if you read like Nudge by Cass Sunstein and someone else, or you read Propaganda by Edward Bernays, you get all this stuff. This is what they're doing to you. What this isn't is free and open debate. I don't really care about any of this. I'm just explaining to you. It's almost like, okay, for me, I used to, let's say, study sewage systems. And all I'm doing is explain to you, this is how sewage systems work. I'm not saying to you that sewage systems are good or sewage systems are bad or you should like this sewage system. I'm just saying this is how they work. They have pressures here, they have pumps here, they force things here. It's just how it works. That's what it is. Okay, let's carry on. The US is preparing to add fuel to the fire by sending £800 million, the latest tranche A tranche, there's a word, tranche of military aid. A tranche, it's not guns, it's a tranche. It's not weapons, it's a tranche. A tranche sounds like something a tranche. Very reasonable. A tranche of military aid to Ukraine, bringing to $2.6 billion, the total since the start of the war. Would you like $2.6 billion? Well, you can't have it because they're being sent to Nazis in Ukraine so they can fight people and kill Ukrainians. That's what this is all about. And these prostitutes writing this stuff, they're operating in support of this. The Biden administration has also made clear that it was sending increasingly heavy and sophisticated equipment, including helicopters, aerial and marine drones, and long-range 155mm howitzers, while training Ukrainian soldiers in their use. Okay, so they are throwing fuel on the fire and sending, money over there in order to kill people. Jolly good. The Ukrainian Prime Minister, Denis Shmyhal, I don't know what they do this to they have to, every single name that they have, which bears any resemblance to a Russian name, they have to spell it differently. I think this is what happens to libtards. There's something, it's bizarre, isn't it? They have to kind of reinvent their identity. It's just consistent. And top finance officials, including the finance minister, Serhiy Marchenko, and the central bank governor, Kyrylo Shevchenko, will head to Washington next week to attend International Monetary Fund and World Bank meetings. Oh, well, I'm sure that will be all very reasonable, then, won't it? The International Monetary Fund and World Bank, we know what are bastions of promotion of peace and wonderfulness they've been in the world. Can't you see what's going on? Anyway, let's carry on. I'll just tell you what's going on. What if there's any discussion with those two organizations, it will be something like, you give us lots of money and we will sign over what's left of our country to you and all the resources in perpetuity. That's what it'll be. This is the economic hitman. If you haven't read that, read that book. And that's what's going to happen there. This is Zelensky. Anyway. Sources told Reuters. Sources told. So a source. Oh, it's a source. Oh, well, there we are then. Opinion leader. Here we are. That's Mildred. There we are. It's a source. Well, it must be true. It must be wonderful. It must be really amazing. Let's carry on. And Associated Press. In case if you don't know, Reuters and Associated Press are the only two media channels, both owned by the same people. Look up who owns those. Okay, I'm not going to get into it here, but they're both owned by the same family, and they control all the news that you get. These are the kind of, you don't have to own all the money. You don't have to control. You don't have to write all the information. What you have to do is control key points. And as far as the money's concerned, the key point is the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland. That is controlled. And as far as information goes, it's AP and Reuters. That's it. That's how it works. Conspiracy theorist. And call people names. That's the other bit. It will be the first chance for key Ukrainian officials to meet in person with financial officials. Oh, it sounds very official. Officials. Oh, well, it must be good then. Financial officials. Yeah, they're going to rape your country from advanced economies since Russia's invasion. Well, we're assumed conclusions again of Ukraine began in February. The bodies of more than... Okay, here we are. There you are. It's an unrelated item. I thought we were talking about being economically raped by the IMF, but now, no, we're back to bodies. And if you followed any of my other stuff, you'll know that my theory is that the West is really its propaganda kind of presentation is so it's founded in hysteria. There are no facts, and they know you're too stupid to follow facts anyway, and then you don't have a memory. So they've got, this is the kind of the information equivalent to popular music, which is just so asinine that anybody who really thought about what they were listening to wouldn't listen to it. But the only way you can make it sort of seem like it's relevant and interesting is by turning the volume up. They've only got more. They've only got this one button, this one kind of dial, more. So what they're doing now is they had X amount of people were murdered ruthlessly in one village. The evil Russians. Actually, if you look into the background of that, again, Scott Ritter, he'll tell you all about that. Doesn't comport with the facts at all. Well, they've had that. Now they're gonna. I don't know what the next atrocities they're going to bring to your attention, but what I do know is it will be something the same but more. If you're eating Big Macs, all you can do is have another one, because you're not going to get French cuisine, in a franchise restaurant. Isn't going to happen. All they can do is give you more. It's quantity over quality. And anyway, they know that your palate is so jaded, you wouldn't appreciate good propaganda if they gave it to you, because it's too stupid by now. They're giving you Minecraft because you can only digest pixels this big. This is the way it works. Anyway, carry on. So what's the next piece of tosh they're going to feed? The bodies of more than 900 civilians have now been discovered in the Kyiv region after the withdrawal of... I'm sorry to laugh. I'm not laughing. I'm not... please understand me correctly. If this is true, if 900 people have been killed, that is a tragedy and a crime. What I'm laughing at is the complete contempt in which they hold the people that the way they're serving up this information, the complete contempt they hold you in. They think you're absolutely stupid. The bodies of more than 900 civilians have now been discovered in the Kyiv region after the withdrawal of Russian forces, police have said. Which police? Who knows? It is double the number announced 2 weeks by the Ukrainian authorities. See what I mean about volume? This is all they've got. I haven't read this before, but I've seen so much of this stuff. It's all the same. Andriy. If you speak Russian, you'll understand why I'm mocking these names. They have to somehow corrupt it so it doesn't look in any way Russian. Andriy Nebytov, I guess, the head of Kyiv's regional police force, said the bodies had been abandoned in the street or given temporary burials. He cited police data. This is an appeal to authority, but they're not giving us who they are exactly, indicating that 95% had died from gunshot wounds. What, you mean they were killed? They were shot and killed. Okay. Quote, consequently, we understand that under the occupation, people were simply executed in the streets, end quote, Nabuitov said. So, yeah, I'm right. This is, I don't know what the details of this are, but from what I've seen so far, nothing would induce me to believe anything that came out of Kyiv. And, again, as somebody who has almost like an aversion to gush of any sort, I want to see the facts. I want to see the actual data before we start ascribing war crimes in a war, which, famously the first casualty of war is truth. Well, I think we owe the truth a certain amount of allegiance before we go around apportioning blame, especially when we haven't been given any proof. But you're too dumb to understand that, according to Luke Harding and his collaborators. After 7 weeks of war, Ukraine said it was trying to break Russia's siege of the southeastern city port of Mariupol. Yeah, it's been defeated in Mariupol is what's actually happened. A city so devastated by shelling and cut off by invading forces that the head of the World Food Programme warned civilians trapped there were at risk of starving to death. Yeah, and that'll be Maria Gonzalez. Oh, Maria. Yeah, you are. Missing context. Well, the missing context is that the Ukrainian forces have been the ones starving them to death, because every time people tried to leave their houses, they were shot at. And if you don't believe me, then look up Patrick. I want to say it's not Lancaster. I keep saying Lawrence. Patrick Lancaster. Look up Patrick Lancaster in YouTube and just spend half an hour listening to him talking to people on the streets of Mariupol and form your opinion, okay? And support him as well. This guy is a crowd-funded journalist. He's not supported by AP or Reuters, or he's not pulling down a fixed salary like a good friend and defender of truth, Luke Harding. No, he's got no one doing that. So find out how you can help Patrick Lancaster and do the right thing and send him some money. Okay, let's carry on. Home to 400,000 people before Russia's invasion. Mariupol and Russian invasion, the reason why I'm saying it like that is because the whole missing context. If you don't know what that is, look up John Mearsheimer's 2015, I believe it is, presentation on the backstory to Ukraine, and I'll tell you why this is happening. Okay, Mariupol has been reduced to rubble. Yes, for the reasons I've just given you. Thousands of civilians have died. No, they haven't died, they've been killed. This is not like, whoops, this word die sort of makes it sound like it's some kind of mistake that just happened. No, they were killed, and they were killed by very particular people, and the particular people that they've been killed by are the Ukrainians. The Russians are there providing people with food and humanitarian aid, and are going to have to rebuild this city when it's all over. Thousands of civilians have died and tens of thousands remain trapped. That bit may be true. I don't think even that bit's true anymore, to be perfectly honest with you, because the Azov regiment and their kind of cohorts have been kicked out of the city and are now in a part of the Azovstal factory. So even that's not even correct. When was this nonsense written? I think it's recent. Saturday the 16th. Yeah, it's today. So yeah, they can't even get their facts straight. I mean, they think they're journalists. It would be laughable if it weren't so criminal. Okay, let's carry on. I don't know how much of this more of this toss there is to go. Ukrainian Defense Ministry spokesperson Alexander. See about names, Alexander. They have to do that. Alexander Matuzyansk said in a briefing that the Russians had not completely captured it, but added, quote, well, they haven't completely, because there are a few, they're in a mopping up operation. The situation in Mariupol is difficult and hard. Fighting is happening right now. The Russian army is constantly calling on additional units to, quote, storm the city. If Moscow captures Mariupol, it would be the first big city to fall. They think you're morons, don't they? Mariupol is done. Whatever was going to happen in Mariupol is done. It's taken. They're mopping up. Why don't you know that? Why doesn't Luke know that? Well, I assume Luke does know that, but he just thinks that you're too stupid to care. Russia's defense ministry said it had captured the city's Ilich steelworks, but that report could not be confirmed. That report could not be confirmed. See, that report could not be confirmed. Where are we? So there you are. That report could not be confirmed. That means it's a lie. We're assuming our conclusions. Anyway, let's get on with this silliness. Ukrainian defenders are mainly believed. Mainly believed. That's an interesting construction. Because believed is just some sort of vague way of saying we want to assert this. But mainly dilutes that assertion even further. Anyway, mainly believed to be holding out in Azovstal, another huge steelworks. Yeah, they're mainly believed because those are the facts on the ground, as you'll find out if you ask somebody who is on the ground. And who's on the ground? Well, Patrick Lancaster is on the ground. If you don't believe the Russians, he's there telling you, showing you what he sees. Where are we? Both plants are owned by Metinvest, the empire of Ukraine's richest businessman and backbone of Ukraine's industrial East, which told I see, they're talking about Metinvest. I don't know what the details are here, but they sound I can guess, but I'm not going to speculate, which told Reuters on Friday it would never let its enterprises operate under Russian occupation. Who cares? In other developments, okay, is there a lot of this? Okay, in other developments, in other unconnected, unrelated events, which we're going to attach to what the litany of nonsense we've just told you. Let's just kind of finish up here. Germany said it planned to release more than 1 billion in military aid for Ukraine. Okay, so they're going to throw some more fuel on the fire. Just Germany really needs that, doesn't it? Because without Russian gas, it's done as a manufacturing country. You remember what you were told by just a few months ago by Klaus Schwab, the Great Reset. How do you think they're going to do that? On Friday, the country's finance minister, Christian Lindner, confirmed the government had decided to increase its international aid. Beware Greeks bearing gifts. International aid in the defence sector to 2 billion, the largest portion going to Ukraine in military aid. It follows pressure from Ukraine and criticism from other EU governments for Germany's apparent lack of weapons support for Kyiv. Diplomatic feathers were ruffled. Diplomatic feathers were ruffled. I think, just to be, more practical for a moment, I think Europeans are going to have more to worry about than diplomatic feathers being ruffled. They're going to have, more pressing concerns like getting enough to eat and not freezing to death. But Luke is completely missing this. But this will be coming to you. You're going to find it hard to find, there'll soon be, I don't know because I don't live in the UK, but I can imagine there are going to be WhatsApp chats and Telegram channels on where to get petrol, on, where the food is, on how can you get some bread today, those sorts of things. But diplomatic feathers being ruffled, well, that sounds serious. Where are we? Earlier in the week, after Kyiv rejected a proposed visit by Germany's President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, a former foreign minister who recently acknowledged, quote, errors in a too conciliatory stance toward Moscow in the past. Anyway, the Ukrainian presidency instead said it wanted to welcome Olaf Scholz, but the Chancellor indicated he had no plans to visit anytime soon. This is trivia, unrelated, but basically Germany's going to be brought round to sacrificing itself on the hill of investing what money it's going to have left in more wars in Ukraine. More war. The UK Ministry of Defence, well, it didn't say anything. An unnamed individual at that place said damage to Ukraine's transport infrastructure now posed a, quote, significant challenge, end quote, to delivery of humanitarian aid to areas retaken from Russian forces. Russia can't get it right, can it? But it's not, I think, if you want my view, that the Russian leadership doesn't really care what you think. It's not fighting this soft battle. It doesn't care. It's going to win this on the ground and deal with reality afterwards. The West can carry on throwing its hashtag 13-year-old girl hissy fits until it's blue in the face, and eventually it will be blue in the face because it's going to be freezing really cold. Next winter it will be blue in the face, I should think. At the same time, there's not going to be very much to eat. So there's also going to be very hard to get hold of petrol. Your economy is going to completely crash. And I believe, my own subjective view, is that this is actually the point. I don't believe in the greedy and stupid conspiracy that a lot of people whom I really respect advocate, that the West somehow is managed by people who are just too greedy and too stupid to understand the reality, and too belligerent and full of hubris towards Russia to kind of get with the reality on the ground because of their own exceptionalism, or sense of their own exceptionalism. I do agree that those people with precisely those characteristics occupy what I would call the sort of apparent executive arms of government. People like Liz Truss and all those other people are quite clearly promoted so far beyond their natural range of talents and abilities that it is, as I've said before, embarrassing to look at them. I do see that there are some intelligent people within that class. They seem to be embedded within it in order to manage the people who are quite stupid, like Liz Truss and her ilk. I do think there are some intelligent people there. What I do notice is that those intelligent people also have to pretend, I think, to be greedy and stupid in order to, that's their cover. But what I don't agree with is that that's all there is. I don't think that that is the apex of the pyramid, as it were. I think that there is a meta layer of very brilliant strategists who, as going back to my thoughts about the controlling the spigot, as it were, at the Bank of International Settlements, or controlling AP and Reuters as the channels of all news. I believe personally that those particular spigots are used also to encourage the promotion and advancement of precisely the people that other very capable analysts see as the executive branch in the West. But I don't think that is the final, as I say, the apex. I think that the actual strategists have used the tools at their disposal in order to advance these mediocrities and non-entities who can be relied upon to follow, to be greedy and stupid, or at least short-sighted, because they're easily bought, as we see, like these journalists, the same sort of thing. But I think they're doing it in order to advance a strategy, a plan that is beyond that which is immediately visible. That's my take on it. For what it's worth. Anyway, thank you for playing Propaganda Bingo today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you managed to complete your card in this game, you can shout out Winston Smith and drop this particular piece of tripe down the memory hole. Anyway, that's it. That's all for now. I hope everyone is well.